Have you ever stopped to think about what's actually powering your brain at this very moment? We're about to take a deep dive into the most critical delivery service in your entire body, the one that keeps you thinking, feeling, and living. Let's go on a journey through the incredible world of cerebral circulation.
So, let's just kick things off with a number that might surprise you. 750 milliliters per minute. That is the sheer volume of blood that your brain demands, every single minute of every single day. It's an unbelievable amount of traffic for just one organ. And to give you a real idea of what that looks like, just picture a large soda bottle. That's how much blood is flowing through your head right now. It's just a staggering reminder of how incredibly hungry the brain is for oxygen and nutrients. So, how does this whole delivery service actually work? Well, here's our roadmap. We're going to start on the brain's superhighways, then visit its central circle of safety. We'll look at the no-overlap delivery zones, the brain's smart control system, something I call the pressure cooker rule, and finally, we'll follow the blood on its journey home. All right, every journey has to start somewhere, right? For this one, we're starting on the on-ramp. These are the main arteries, the absolute superhighways that are responsible for getting all that blood up into the brain in the first place.
This whole operation relies on four major vessels working together. You've got two internal carotid arteries and two vertebral arteries, all running up your neck. And here's a really cool piece of anatomy. Those two vertebral arteries, they actually fuse together to form one basilar artery as they enter the skull. Everything starts with these four powerful supply lines.
Now, once these superhighways get to the brain, they don't just split off randomly. Oh no, they connect at this central interchange. Just an incredible piece of natural engineering. This interchange is called the Circle of Willis, and you can really just think of it like a perfectly designed traffic roundabout at the very base of your brain. It's a ring of arteries that connects all four of those major incoming vessels, creating the central hub for distributing all that blood. And this circle, it's an absolute masterpiece of safety and redundancy. It makes sure the pressure is equal on both sides of the brain, and it provides a backup route, we call that collateral flow, just in case one of the main arteries gets blocked. It's a fantastic safety net. From this central ring, 6 large arteries then branch off to supply the rest of the brain's cortex. Okay, so the blood has made it through the central hub. Now it's time for the local delivery. It's traveling down smaller and smaller arteries to get to every last bit of brain tissue. And this is where the system gets incredibly specific and a little bit risky.
You see, here we find a critical and, honestly, a kind of dangerous feature of the brain's plumbing. Unlike in other parts of your body, these tiny arteries don't have any overlapping supply routes. Each one is what's known as an end artery. It is the one and only source of blood for its tiny little patch of brain tissue. If one gets blocked, there's no backup. And that's exactly why a stroke can be so devastating.
At the end of these tiny little roads are the brain's capillaries. But listen, these are not your average capillaries. The ones elsewhere in your body are kind of leaky. They have pores. The brain's capillaries? Nope. They have no pores and they are sealed with what are called tight junctions. This creates an ultra-selective filter we all know as the blood-brain barrier, and it acts like a bouncer, carefully controlling what gets out of the blood and into your precious brain tissue. But the brain's needs are always changing, right? Every time you think a new thought, or see something, or move a muscle, the demand for energy shifts. So how does it get blood flow exactly where it's needed most? Well, it uses this incredibly sophisticated dynamic control system. The brain actually has 4 main ways to regulate its own blood supply. We're going to focus on the 2 heavy hitters here, metabolic regulation and autoregulation. First up is metabolic regulation. And this is just a brilliant on-demand system. When a bunch of neurons starts firing and working hard, they produce waste, like carbon dioxide. Specialized cells called astrocytes sense this waste and send out signals that tell the local blood vessels to widen or dilate. So more work means more waste, which immediately triggers more blood flow, exactly when and where it's needed. It's genius. Next, we have autoregulation. And you can think of this as the brain's self-preservation superpower. It's this incredible ability to keep its own blood flow remarkably stable, even if your body's overall blood pressure is swinging all over the place, like when you exercise or stand up too fast. Now, this autoregulation system is amazing, but it only works within a specific safe zone. As you can see here, as long as your body's mean arterial pressure stays between roughly 60 and 140, the brain can hold its blood flow perfectly steady. But if you go outside that zone, things get dangerous. If the pressure drops too low, the brain starts to starve. If it spikes too high, the tiny, delicate vessels can get damaged, which can cause dangerous swelling.
So there's another really unique challenge that the brain has to deal with. It lives inside a hard, rigid, unyielding box, your skull. And that creates this kind of pressure cooker situation that the circulatory system has to deal with 24/7.
This whole situation is governed by a principle in physics called the Monro-Kellie doctrine. And it's pretty simple, really. It just says that because the skull is a rigid container, the total volume of all the stuff inside, which is brain tissue, blood, and cerebrospinal fluid, has to stay constant.
The easiest way to think about it is this. The skull is a sealed box. Inside, you have three things that can't be compressed: brain, blood, and fluid. So if one of those things increases in volume, let's say from swelling or a bleed, it physically has to be at the expense of the other two. The pressure inside the box goes up, and it can start squeezing the blood vessels shut, which, as you can imagine, is very, very bad. Okay, so after the blood makes its delivery of oxygen and nutrients, the job's not done. Now it has to make the return trip, carrying all the waste products out of the skull and back toward the heart and lungs to get cleaned up and reoxygenated. And this happens through a really clear pathway. The now deoxygenated blood gets collected by a whole network of veins. These veins all drain into these large channels called dural venous sinuses, which eventually funnel all the blood into one spot, the sigmoid sinus. And from there, it leaves the skull through the two big internal jugular veins in your neck, completing the circuit.
So from those massive superhighways to the tiny dead-end local streets, we've seen how this incredibly elegant and highly regulated system works around the clock to power every single thing that makes you, you.
And that really leaves us with a fascinating final thought. This whole system has robust backups on the large scale, like the circle of Willis, but it has absolute total vulnerability at the smallest scale, with those end arteries. So what does that tell us about the brain's incredible drive for efficiency, and at the same time, its profound and almost terrifying fragility?